So I stumbled upon what I think is a great resource for writing while I was looking for something online, and it's the Harvard College Writing Center, and it's this particular website that says strategies for essay writing. And what I love about it is that when I was scrolling through it, it seemed to echo a lot of the things that I try to teach y'all in class, or that some of the things that I'm trying to teach y'all now. And so what I want to say is sometimes we have teachers who we have a hard time understanding, and that for whatever reason the way they teach, maybe you don't understand it as well, or maybe you have a teacher who taught you something and you really liked the way that they taught it, but you can't always go back and ask them questions. So it's always good to share resources that I know that y'all can use in the future when I'm not there, or in lack of me, or in the future when you're writing something for college. I don't think that this Harvard website is going to go anywhere, just like I don't think that Purdue OWL's website is going to go anywhere. So here's what I want to show you. One, it gives you pointers on how to do a close reading, and close reading is what y'all do when y'all are doing timed writes or when you're reading a novel and I say, okay, you need to make notes, and I say, read with a pencil in hand, kind of like how I say, surgeons don't go into an operation empty-handed. They don't say, they look and they address problems as they see it. Just like when you're reading, you should be reading the text and also taking notes on what you see, okay? So it talks about annotating. It goes over how to do a close read. It has a developing a thesis. It has outlining, which is what we're talking about right now. And I think one of these, maybe it's, okay, it has topic sentences and signposting. So, you'll know what a topic sentence is. It's the first sentence of your body paragraph, and it tells you what the topic of the paragraph is. But signposting is kind of like, sometimes people call it road markers, and it's words that indicate what direction your paper is going with. And I liked that. I liked this little tidbit on topic sentences. It says that you should write a complex sentence when doing a topic sentence, and that topic sentences at the beginning of a paragraph frequently combined with a transition from the previous paragraph. This might be done by writing a sentence that contains both a subordinate and independent clause. And then it gives you an example, and it says, although young woman with a water pitcher depicts an unknown middle-class woman at an ordinary task. Okay, so that is the subordinate clause, okay, which is what's making this a complex sentence. And it's what was previously mentioned in that previous paragraph. And then it goes on to the new idea. Okay, and it says, the image is more realistic. The painter has imposed his own order upon it to strengthen it. So that was the independent clause, and that is what they're going to talk about in this paragraph. So I really liked that. And there was something in here. See, it talks about bridge sentences, which he says, I didn't come up with the term bridge sentence. It was this person. But a bridge sentence, literally bridges two ideas together. Pivots, and it's, which just reminds me of Friends. But anyways, pivots, these transitional words, but, yet, or, however. Signposting. I was trying to find, at some point, I was reading in here that they had kind of like a little list of, oh, I guess it was transitions. Transitioning, it says beware of Velcro. This is what I liked. It has some good transitions in there. Addresses an essential similarity or dissimilarity, and then it lists some transitions. Likewise, in the same way, on the other hand, despite, in contrast. So that was useful. But what I really liked was this metaphor that they had up here. And it said that it was like this. All right. As the writer of an essay, imagine yourself crossing a river, guiding a troop of avid readers. You bring an armful of stones to lay down and step as you go. Kind of like the idea that I mentioned, that you're building an argument, that you're leading your reader through this paper. Each stone is a sentence or paragraph that speaks to and develops the essay's thesis or central question. If you find yourself in the middle of the river with another mile to the shore but only a few more stones, you can't finesse such a situation. You can't ask your reader to follow you and jump too broad a span. And that's what I'm saying. Sometimes you don't have enough evidence and you have to bring in more, that you have a complex issue and you have to have another paragraph so that your reader can follow you, so your reader can understand you. And then it goes on. In such case, stop and ask yourself if you need more stones, more sentences or paragraphs, or if perhaps you've already used one that's more properly belongs ahead, meaning you're going to have to move a piece of evidence. It goes in a different paragraph. On a second look, you may decide that the distance between stones is not that great. After all, perhaps your reader only needs a hand of assistance to get from one stone or paragraph to the next. In an essay, such assistance can't be offered in the form of furthermore, or in addition to, or therefore. These are called transitional words or phrases. Okay, so I really liked that metaphor of, trying to get your readers to cross the river, and that the paragraphs, the sentences, are stepping stones, and that they're leading them through this path. Just trying to see. I also really liked the revising and their editing. It had a lot of good suggestions, proofreading, and taking time, really. Rethinking your thesis, which is something that I always did in college. After I wrote my paper, and somewhere along the lines, I might have found a different point that I was making, and I didn't want to throw it away just because it didn't work with my thesis. So what was the easiest thing to do was rewrite my thesis to make it now fit with the paper that I've written. Rethink your thesis based on what you did in the previous step. Restructure your argument, reorder your points, cut irrelevance or redundancies, and complications and implications. You want to return to the text for additional evidence, okay? And that, in general, and it says it somewhere, I think, in the editing process, but the best writing is the most well understood writing, and that the reader understands exactly what you wanted them to know. Not that it has lofty language, not that you're trying to inflate, your language, but that your reader understands the point that you were trying to make. It says, get feedback. Since you already know what you're trying to say, you aren't always the best judge of where the draft is clear or unclear. Let another reader tell you. Then discuss out loud what you were trying to achieve. In articulating for someone else what you meant to argue, you will clarify ideas for yourself. Meaning, turn to your neighbor who's working with you in the computer lab and say, can you read this, and do you get my point? Because you know a lot about the information that you're presenting. However, you might have left the reader, 2 paragraphs ago, and that this particular point that you're trying to make needs more clarification at the front end. You have to front load your reader with information that they know. Or you've made a jump too soon. You've left them off somewhere. Another thing that I liked that they had was, and it has 2 parts for editing the essay. Editing the essay. Read your essay out loud, which I always tell my students, and a lot of the times when I'm working with my on-level kids, I go to read the essay out loud, and they say, don't read it out loud. Or they'll say, I didn't write that. You're making this up. And I say, no, I'm not trying to be mean. I'm not making this up. But when you read an essay out loud, you hear the mistakes. You've seen it a million times. Your brain is still processing it the same way. Read it out loud. Hear what it says, okay? Make sure all of your words are doing the important work in making your argument. Be precise. Be clear. Be aware of inappropriately elevated language. Okay, you don't need to sound pompous. You just need to be clear and precise and direct. Anything else that I wanted to... Be tough on your most dazzling sentences, which I'd never thought of before. A sentence that you're really proud of, that you really liked, that you're like, ooh, I don't know where that's going, but it's staying in here for sure. You know, really look at that sentence. And as you revise, you may find that, it says sentences you needed in earlier drafts no longer belong. And these may be sentences you're most fond of, but even though you're fond of them, you really like how you wrote that, maybe it still just doesn't belong in the paper because it's not a point that you're making anymore. This is a really great resource, but not only is it a great resource, I think that it hits a point that I've been trying to make, and that's that this assignment is not just an assignment for an assignment's sake. It's something that I want y'all to get out of it, and it's something that I think you can use in the future, in college writing, and that these skills that you learn in this unit you can take with you beyond my class. So this is a good resource. I wanted you to be aware of it, but I also wanted to say that I'm not a crazy person in making you do some of these things. Okay. Hope y'all enjoyed.